Hello, everybody. Happy Tuesday to you. Thank you so much for tuning in for this month's Creative Manifesto session for the month of July. So it looks like we've got Cheryl checking in from Florida for her first manifesto meeting, she calls it, which I like the alliteration there. We've got Missy here from Pittsburgh, Celeste, Karen, Catherine's checking in. We've got Corinne and Stephanie. Got a dog shaking her head, sorry. She just woke up from a nap. I've got Maria and Joy saying hello from Cape Cod, which is fantastic. Connie is here. Excellent. It's so great to see all of you. So for those of you that are here and wondering what the heck is a creative manifesto, so I love hosting these sessions once a month so that we can kind of just take a moment to think about our creative goals and just our general goals for the month of July. So we usually host them on the first Monday of every month. I was out of town for a few days, so today is a Tuesday, obviously. But we're going to focus on our goals for the month of July today instead. And we've got some more folks trickling in. Heather, Margaret, Lalita, Isa, Juan, and Linda are here. Fantastic. So what I want to start off with is I want to show you some examples of creative manifestos that you all have shared over the last few months. Just to give you kind of an example of what we're going to be doing today together. So I'm going to share some examples with you, and then I'm going to give you some things to think about, and I want you to have a sketchbook with you, if you can, or a piece of paper, and a pen, something to write or draw with. And there's going to be a few different ways to do this for the Creative Manifesto. So for those of you that are just joining, this session is to really give you a chance to think about your creative goals for the upcoming month. And for some of us, this can be a word or a quote, or more literally kind of a to-do list of creative things that you want to do. But one of the things that I love doing with this exercise that I hope you will also partake in is that I encourage all of you to grab whatever sketchbook you're working with, and we will sit down and set a timer to do this together in a little bit. But I want you to pick a page in that sketchbook. Pick a random page. It doesn't have to be the next page in your sketchbook. It could be 7 or 10 pages away. But the point of picking kind of a random page in your sketchbook is that you will kind of come across this reminder in a few drawings or in a few weeks or in a few days. And it will kind of pop up as something that, just gives you a reminder of why you're doing what you're doing, why you're being creative. And for some folks, I find that they come across their creative manifesto page usually right before the next session that we have. Mine is about 4 pages away. But you can mark the page if you want. You can bend the corner. Or if you don't like to leave things up to chance, and you don't like spontaneity, that's okay. You can put this on a front page, or you can put this on a loose piece of paper that maybe you tape above your desk or your work table. So it's totally up to you how and where you put this manifesto, and we're all going to kind of do it in our own way. But to start, I want to show you some examples of creative manifestos that have been shared in the schoolyard from previous sessions that we've had. And I also love doing this because it's kind of a way for those of you that are attending, that have been attending repeatedly, to see if you've accomplished those goals and to kind of be reminded of what you set out to do a month ago now. So Molly did this lovely page where she used a quote kind of as her reminder for her creative manifesto for the month of June. And she used the quote that you can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have, which I think is a perfect philosophy for this sort of way of thinking. So for some of you, coming up with a quote that kind of keeps you inspired sort of serves as a mantra for the month. That's one way that you can go about it. And it looks like we've got a few more people checking in. Mary, Leah is here from Argentina, which is awesome. Right now, I'm just showing a few examples of creative manifestos that students have written in the past month. So this is another one from Maggie. And she actually wrote out this nice page of text with a little drawing on one side. And this was kind of her note to herself on what to focus on for the month of June. And she used some really cool lettering there. Another student, Lydia, she did something a little more illustrative and actually made her creative manifesto page a fully realized drawing. And we're going to sit down and write these together here in a few moments, and you'll have time to revisit them and embellish them. I'm pretty sure Lydia spent more time on this one and the 5 minutes that we shared, just simply jotting down our ideas. So Lydia made a beautiful spread out of her creative manifesto page, which I love. So you can turn this into a work of art, or it can just be a written thing. It can just be kind of a to-do list or a reminder. It's up to you. Another student, Linda, who couldn't join us today, but she shared her July manifesto as this drawing. And she commented on the fact that she's taken lots of workshops at Sketchbook school, but she never actually does the exercises in the workshops. She just watches them and sort of absorbs what the instructor has to say, but doesn't always finish her drawings from the workshops. So this little illustration is kind of her vow to actually work on the projects that are explained in the workshops that we host. So that's a really simple way to have a creative manifesto, to set one goal for yourself for the month. So Linda kind of set herself a little homework assignment, if you will, and I really like that approach. Heather just picked a word. So for those of you that are coming up with a creative manifesto, you want to maybe just pick one word to focus on. It might feel kind of limiting or overwhelming to come up with this laundry list of creative projects that you want to accomplish. Sometimes you can just pick a word. And here Heather chose the word heal. So that was kind of what she wanted to focus on for the month, and she wanted to use her creative practice to do so. So for those of you here that are more thinking about a theme or a word, you can also do that for your creative manifesto. Another one I wanted to share was Danica shared this lovely, sort of very graphic approach, and she actually made herself these little street signs almost to serve as reminders of things that she didn't want to do, like doubt herself, and things that she did want to do, like keep going, making art, and playing, and really having fun. So you can really make this kind of a nice reminder for yourself in your sketchbook that you can turn to anytime you need it, and I really like that aspect of it. So if you do put this in a sketchbook today, when we sit down to write these, I encourage you to do that because you'll be able to return to it really easily when you need that boost and you need that reminder. And one last manifesto that I wanted to share was Carol's, and she actually drew some of her art supplies on her manifesto. So her goal for the month was to practice art daily. And I just love that she took this as an opportunity to draw some of her art supplies. And she also gave herself these little reminders as to why she should make art. So for her, I could easily see her turning to this page, maybe on a day that she doesn't feel like making art, and being able to read these little notes to herself and reminders as to why she makes art, how it makes her feel, just some little notes to herself that, she won't regret sitting down and making art, and that it will make her feel better. So you can also use this as an opportunity to give yourself some reminders. Maybe things that you want your future self to remember about why you're creative and why you make art. So as you can see, we've got lots of options here for our creative manifesto, and that's really just a fancy, fun title for goals and goal setting. And I think that goal setting is really important when you're a creative person, right? Because you always want to keep growing, you always want to keep improving, and you want to keep learning. So I think that's kind of the point of all this and the point of why we're here together thinking about these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually set us a timer. So for those of you just joining, or those of you that have been here the whole time, I want you to grab your sketchbook or a piece of paper if you don't have one, and I want you to grab a pen. And I want you to think about these. You can use color, you can use anything that you want to kind of embellish them, but we'll start with the words, right? So we'll start by writing out what your creative goals are for the month of July. So what is something that you want to focus on? What is one word or one quote that you want to remind yourself of? Or simply, what is a list of things that you want to accomplish this month? What are the things that you want to remind yourself to do, to explore, to learn? For those of you that are in the audience, it looks like Nancy and Linda just checked in. I want you to get out your sketchbooks, and I'm going to get our little timer up here on the screen. Whoops, we're going to start that over. And what I want you to do is we're going to spend 5 minutes together. And I'm going to go ahead and start this timer. And once we're done with these, I definitely want you to share in the chat some of your ideas. But the timer is going, and I want you to turn to a page in your sketchbook. Any page. It could be later. It could be 10 pages from now. Or it could be your next page. It's totally up to you. But I want you to grab your pen and your sketchbook. And I want you to use this time to just think about what you want to focus on for this month. And one of the things that I like about this is that it doesn't necessarily have to just be a creative goal, right? So my manifesto last month was to be more curious and to always ask myself, what can I learn more about? So you can ask yourself something a little more broad and general that you could apply to other areas of your life, which is kind of interesting. So I want you to put pen to paper right now, and I would play music if YouTube didn't not like me using copyrighted music. Looks like Marta just checked in, so we've got our timer going, and I want you to sit down and I want you to write what your creative manifesto is for the month of July. So I want you to either think about some creative things that you want to accomplish, or I want you to think about a quote or a word even that you want to focus on. If it's too overwhelming to think about a list of things, just think about one word, one thing that you want to remind yourself of, kind of like your personal theme for the month. That might be an easier way to kind of approach it. So I want you to do that right now in your sketchbook, and I actually have to think about mine. I just spent a long weekend in the mountains. We did a lot of hiking, and I got to spend a lot of time drawing, and I think that gave me a nice boost and a way to recharge. So I'm actually thinking about my creative manifesto and some thoughts that I had over the weekend while I was unplugged and away from screens. So I think that's actually going to be what my manifesto is kind of about. And I will look forward to seeing what you've done and what you've created. So for those of you that are doing this activity right now, I want you to share it with us in the schoolyard under the Creative Manifesto topic, or you can share it with the Daily Drawing Habit hashtag on social media. So whatever that format might take for you, I would love to see what you came up with for your creative manifesto. And I also would love for you to share them in the comments here. So it looks like Isa already shared their creative goal, which is to focus and study their paintings and sketching. So that's great, something to improve on and keep working on. But I would love to hear what those of you in the audience are going to be focusing on this month. And we will look at those here in a second. We've got 2 minutes left on the timer. So for those of you that just popped in, you've got a couple more minutes to write down your creative manifesto for the month of July. And for those of you that feel a little rushed, I want you to know that you can return to this, obviously. Even after this video ends, you can add color, you can add some images. I think I'm going to be adding a couple little drawings to mine, probably. And I just want you to, revisit it, and you can add embellishments. And just kind of jazz it up, make it special. As I'm doing that and talking, I'm kind of making sure I don't leave any words out or mess anything up. But it's your sketchbook. It doesn't really matter, right? It's just for you. No one else is looking at it. So yeah, I want you to kind of jazz it up and really focus on your word or your quote or your list of goals for the month of July. And that's what I've done. And let's see, you guys have about a minute left. Let's see what those of you that are sharing in the chat. Looks like Marta and Lorena are up very late. I think they're in Australia, which means it's maybe the middle of the night for them. So thank you for your dedication to those of you that joined us at really random hours. I know Maria's in Russia, so it's nighttime for her right now, which is a great thing to kind of cap off the day with. It looks like Joy's quote that she's focusing on is "Nothing changes if nothing changes." And I like that. I think that's a great reminder that we have to keep moving. We have to keep growing even when things kind of feel a little uncertain. It looks like Cynthia is going to be focusing on faces for the month of July. Now that's an awesome challenge. It's a really good thing a good skill to want to develop and improve on. Let's see, who else? Yeah, so if any of you want to share anything else that you're thinking about in the chat, feel free. I just finished mine, and our timer is about to run up. For those of you that did write something in your sketchbook for this exercise, I can't wait to see it. You can share it in the schoolyard with us under the Creative Manifesto topic, or you can share it on social media with the hashtag Daily Drawing Habit. But you can definitely share in the chat what you want to be focusing on this month. I know sometimes when people share it in these sessions, it kind of acts like a accountability. If you say it out loud, you have to do it, which I like. It looks like Maria is learning perspective. So focusing on something technical, maybe honing a specific skill. That's a really good goal to have for a month's time. Connie's word that she's focusing on is to listen. And I do like, I just showed Cynthia's instead of Connie's. But Connie's was to listen. So she's focusing on listening. Now, whether that means listening to herself or listening to her environment, I think that's a great thing to remind yourself of. It looks like Corinne is working on prioritizing. I know as creative people, I love this one, we all tend to have our hands in a lot of baskets, right? We want to do everything all at once. And I like that Corinne is focusing on prioritizing. So asking ourselves, what is most important? What should I put my time and energy into? It's a great reminder. Isa is working on watercolor painting. Elena is working on calligraphy. Looks like you guys have some great interests here. Color theory is what Heather's working on. Marta is focusing on learning how to make realistic drawings. Yeah, so just trying to make your drawings, kind of take them to the next level. That's a great goal. Leah is looking at the heritage of her neighborhood and birds in her backyard. I love thinking about the places that we exist in and really paying attention to those when we draw. I think that's fantastic. I spent some time drawing my family's property when I was away this weekend in the mountains and just really focusing on the house that my dad grew up in and just thinking about place. And I love that Leah is kind of on the same channel there. Corinne's also sharing, which I love, what you don't do is just as important as what you do. So you get to design your life like you would a composition. I think that's a really great way to look at it. Mary Lou is reminding herself to show up every day. And I think that's really important for a creative habit. You have to show up on the days even when you don't want to, because that's where the good stuff happens, right? That's where the growth and the improvement happens. It's when you're doing the hard thing, right? So I love that, Mary Lou. I think that's great. Lolita wants to choose a theme to explore. So Lolita's mentioning that she wants a theme. So maybe she wants to narrow her focus, and just pick one thing to focus on. So it looks like you all have a lot going on this month, which I love. These sessions always kind of give me sort of a renewed sense of purpose and excitement around something. So for me, after this weekend, my manifesto is just to step away from the screens. That's really simple, right? And I drew some really wonky little computer screens. But for me, I just need to get off the screens, right? I know in the pandemic right now, we're all on a lot of Zoom calls. But for me to be creative, I need to just get off my phone, stop scrolling through things, right? And just look at pages instead of, real paper instead of computer screens. So that's what I'm going to focus on. But thank you to all of you that popped in today, and whether you are watching live or you're going to tune into this later, I hope that you give yourself a few moments to really just think about it. Maybe have a little moment of quiet and peace to yourself, maybe after your kids have gone to bed or you've got the room to yourself, to just think about what you want to focus on for the month of July. It's a new month, and I think we've all got learning to do and improving and creating, and I'm excited. It looks like All-in-One is asking how to avoid art block. Sometimes it's just facing a sort of a creative block and you can't think of anything to draw. And that's a great question that I feel like probably 80% of us here have experienced. Someone else mentioned to stop doom scrolling. Yes, I think reading a lot of the news sometimes just ends up kind of freezing up our brains, right? And we can use that energy elsewhere. But for the individual that's asking about avoiding creative blocks, at least from my personal experience, we have a lot of inspiration at Sketchbook School. We've got drawing prompts on our website that you can download if you're ever just in a bind and need something to start with. So I would recommend checking that out if you're, having a hard time getting started. But thanks again for everyone that made it here. And I hope that you all have a great week and an awesome month. We'll see you later this week for Draw With Me with Danny, and also for my student bulletin on Friday, where we'll do a little bit of drawing together. And then we will tune in on the first Monday of next month and see how you all did with these goals that you set for yourself, okay? So thanks for tuning in, and I hope that you have a great week, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!